You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Tuesday, October 13th, 2020. This week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we are talking about Jesus's growing up years, which all took place in the small, unimportant village of Nazareth. So we've already talked about what Jesus's house probably looked like. And today we are going to talk about something that was very important to Mary, Jesus, and Joseph, and that is their faith. Now, being a Jew who lived in Nazareth meant that you had to make pilgrimage. Now, this might be hard for us to understand, but even in the little town of Nazareth, there was a synagogue. This was a place where people gathered on the Sabbath. They would pray and talk about the faith and read from the Torah, but it was more of a community center. There was only one true temple where you could really encounter God and worship, and that one temple was in Jerusalem. Therefore, the devout male Jews went to Jerusalem 3 times a year. Sometimes we think about St. Joseph journeying to Bethlehem with Mary like he was setting out on a path that he'd never been down before. That's not true. St. Joseph went down that path to Jerusalem, which was very near to Bethlehem, 3 times a year. It was a 5-day walk. If you were a healthy man, you could make it in 5 days, but that meant a 5-day walk there, spending some time in Jerusalem, and then a 5-day walk back. And so the pilgrimages took a lot of time out of life. We know from the gospel that Joseph was a devout Jew, so he definitely would have spent that time walking to Jerusalem and walking back. And as soon as Jesus was able, he would have joined his father as well. In fact, the one story that we have about Jesus while he was growing up comes from one of these pilgrimages to Jerusalem. It's clear that their whole extended family loved their Jewish faith and took practicing it seriously because we hear the story of a large group of people. Maybe it's the whole village of Nazareth, all 300 people perhaps, have set out from Nazareth to Jerusalem for a feast day. They've been there, they've worshiped, they've celebrated. Now it's time to go back. So this is a big group of people. Maybe Jesus is playing with some of his cousins or with his aunt, or at least that's what they think. So they travel for a full day walking. They get to wherever they're going to stop. They build a campfire as usual. They're sitting around having their meal, singing psalms and other pilgrimage songs when they realize something. Now, what do Mary and Joseph realize? Well, they realize, of course, that Jesus wasn't just off playing with his cousins and having fun. He's not with them. He must be all the way back in Jerusalem. Now, we can imagine how terrifying this would have been. Jesus grew up in a town of 300 people. He probably knew every single person in that little village. Jerusalem was very, very different. Jerusalem was much bigger, but it also was controlled by the Romans. Romans were everywhere. Romans didn't think twice about killing. This is a very dangerous thing. So, of course, terrified, Mary and Joseph return. They're searching and searching. They look in the temple and they find Jesus there. Thankfully, he is safe, but he's doing something very strange. Jesus is sitting among the teachers, the most respected teachers, because, of course, they're in Jerusalem. They're in the temple, and Jesus is teaching them. So that's odd. But I want you to realize something else, Sprouts. The strangest thing that Jesus says, he actually says to his mother. He asks her why she is surprised that he is in his father's house. Now, that might now sound strange to us. We oftentimes talk about the church as our Father's house. We refer to God as our Father often. But this is not something that Jews did when Jesus was alive. And in fact, to call God your father, meaning that you are his son, at the time would have been a great sin, a great blasphemy. How dare you assume that you are so wonderful, that you are God's child? This would have been a horrible thing. Mary was probably very surprised. Of course, she knew that this was the Messiah, but she was slowly understanding all of these things. So that would have been very shocking. Of course, we know that Jesus went with Mary and Joseph. He went back to Nazareth, and we have just one little sentence that explains the rest of his growing up years, and that is that he was obedient to them. That's it. Thankfully, we have a lot of evidence about what Jewish families did and how they lived at this time, so we'll be talking about that for the rest of the week. But for today, Sprouts, my challenge for you is to pray a Hail Mary for all families. Something that Pope John Paul II said that we all need to take to heart is that the Holy Family is the first Holy Family, not the only, the first. So what does that mean for your family? Well, it means that you are called to be a holy family as well. It's difficult. We fail all the time, but this is what we're asked to be. So join with me today as we say a Hail Mary for all families, that they might be holy families as well. That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God created you to be. Just one more thing. I wanted to let you know that we are running a special promotion on all of our patterns of the Catholic saints. We have many, many patterns of many saints that can be used for either cross-stitch project or my favorite, perler bead projects. So if you're interested in checking this out before the promotion ends, I encourage you to check out the link in the show notes.